Aidan, I'm buying a used bike, what should I look for? Is a question that I get asked every single day whilst working here at Go Off-Road. Now, I've got a steering in front of me. It is in really good condition because it's only got 160 miles on it. But if you're buying a steering that's used, you might not exactly know what you're looking for. So I'm here today to help you and guide you through exactly what to check when you're buying a used steering. So the number one important tip is to check the bike isn't stolen. That goes without saying, guys, but you will get stung a lot on Facebook Marketplace and these types of things with stolen bikes. It's happened to a lot of people that we know. Simply do as many checks as you can. Try and get the original receipt of where it was bought from. You're never going to be able to 100% guarantee that bike isn't stolen, but by getting original paperwork and proof of ownership, it will give you the best chance possible. Now, let's start right from the top. The brakes, one of the most important things on a Seiron, as you will all know. Now, the brakes should not be leaking any type of fluid from the cylinder, hoses or caliper. So come to your brakes, make sure there's some resistance and make sure the brakes don't pull all the way back to the handlebars. If the brakes pull all the way back to the handlebars, they will likely need new pads, discs, bleeding or all three. There also could be a faulty brake system completely and it might need fully replacing. Worth taking into consideration if you're buying a bike that you might need to get them repairs done at a later date. Also, let's move on to suspension. So the suspension on a Seiron, depending on how it's been treated over its life, can become very worn quite quickly if there's been a lot of jumps and not a lot of cleaning, not a lot of maintenance. So if you just put both your brakes in and put some weight onto the suspension itself, there should be some resistance there and it shouldn't be really soft, but also it shouldn't be really hard. As you can see on this bike, because it's quite new, there is a nice amount of resistance and the forks are nice and free. That is what you're looking for when you're buying a bike. Bear in mind these can be quite expensive at around £400 a set if you're looking to replace them. Let's also look at the front wheel. So this wheel has wheel bearings inside. So when you're putting your wheel on in the spaces, this axle goes through your wheel bearings themselves. Now this wheel shouldn't have much play, well, it shouldn't have any play in it at all. As a bearing will get more worn, the play will start to increase slightly. This is quite an inexpensive job that will cost you around £20 to fix, so it's not a lot. The best way to check this is by holding your brake in, grab your tyre, and basically move your wheel side to side. If you can feel play or see play moving where the spacer sits itself, then it's time to get them wheel bearings removed and replaced. But there also can be sometimes wear in the hub itself, so also check the condition around the hub to make sure it's not gone oval and it's got loads of play in it, which would mean you'd need a new wheel. Now that's a little bit technical, but yeah, basically make sure there's no play in the front wheel. It's also worth noting that these controllers are aluminium. Some people don't look at this too much, but if there's a lot of water or salty water exposed to these controllers, all the paint can come off and it can start to look really, really worn and tarnished. That is something that would devalue the bike if you're buying one second hand. So always look at this and make sure the controller's not absolutely battered. If it is battered and the bike's in overall poor condition, of course you want to be paying less money for it. That's how it works. Now, another thing to look out for, again, on the back wheel is exactly the same. Look out for the bearings, so do the exact same thing. Check there's not too much play in the wheel itself. It is normal on the back end to have a little bit of flex, simply because the swing arm's there and that kind of thing. Also, you'll notice the stand, make sure that it's not snapped again. Make sure these pegs are not cracked or broken because that is quite a common issue. And also make sure the stand is nice and free and not seized onto the bike or really rusty or hard to move. As you'll see on the Seiron Light View, there is a suspension linkage set up here as well. And as you can see there is a belt drive system. Now the belt drives are pretty much one of the things that gets worn quite a lot on these bikes. So expect to replace that around twice a year depending on how you ride it. To check the wear in these linkages here, what you can do is, there's a few ways of doing that. The best way is to lift the back end of the bike up slightly and tap it down on the floor. As you can see on this bike, there's no actual play in the bush itself. You can see a little bit of movement from the suspension, which is completely normal, but there's no play itself. Also, if you just lift it up a little bit, if you can see the bolt moving inside the bush, that means it's worn. And again, with the rear shock, if you sit on the bike, it shouldn't be really stiff and it shouldn't be really soft and it shouldn't be bottoming out. So nice bit of resistance, nice and free, and it should feel nice and comfortable when you're sitting on the bike. Another thing to check is the belt. So the belt is driven by the motor and this connects to the jack shaft right here. If you take a look under this undercarriage, you will see there's teeth on the belt which shouldn't be excessively worn, and also the front side of the belt here shouldn't be fraying or showing any types of cords or wear. Again, this is something that you are going to be expected to replace about twice a year. So if it is worn, it's not an expensive fix, around £90 supplied and fitted at Go Off-Road, so not a massive job. But yeah, again, worth looking at if you are on a budget. So again, not a massive expense, but the sprockets and chains can set you back about £120 fitted on this bike. So you've got the rear sprocket, front sprocket, and also the chain itself. Now this one does need a clean. It's about to go through the workshop for a service before we prep it for sale. But as you can see, the overall chain condition, it's not too rusty. The chain's not really loose and stretched. The sprocket teeth aren't excessively worn. And also you can see the front sprocket teeth right under there as well. Sometimes they are really sharp, which would mean, again, they're worn and they're ready for replacement. Again, worth taking into consideration if you are on a budget when buying a used bike. The biggest thing, guys, is actually getting on this bike and testing it and seeing what it's like. You can't really judge a Seiron by its cover. You have to get on the bike and ride it. One thing to always check is turn your ignition on, hold your back wheel up and rev it like this. There you will get a good idea if your speedo's working, if your back wheel is buckled, and also if the bike works in general. You can also listen out for clicking noises, which would mean the jackshaft bearings are needing replacement. That can also mean that your chain is worn or your chain's not in line with the sprocket and back wheel. Always take out the battery, ensure the key from the ignition works in the battery lock as well. Make sure the battery and breaker and everything is intact and not showing any signs of wear or cables fraying, that kind of thing. Always pull your battery out and make sure it's as described. For example, if this bike is listed as a 60 volt 40 amp hour, simply go to the underneath of the battery and you'll be able to see there, it'll give you all the specs of the battery, 60 volt 40 amp hour. A lot of the times people list bikes and say they're a 40 amp hour, but they might only be a 32 or a 37. Bearing in mind that amp hour is the range, so if you buy a bike with less amp hour, you would get less riding time on there as well. Another key mistake people make is by not testing the charger when they're buying a bike. So always ask for the charger, plug it into a wall and test its operation before you buy. It's always good to look over the bike in full as well. Is the seat ripped? Is the frame cracked or damaged? Are the tyres needing replacement? Are they worn? Is there a puncture? You know, all this thing take into consideration when you're buying a bike because it can cost you an arm and a leg to fix. Now, if you're wanting to know anything else about Seirons, drop us a comment today. We are a business and we need to make money, but of course, we'll always try and make time to help people if they need it. So guys, yeah, if you want to buy a bike from us, all you need to do is head to the website. We offer nationwide delivery and finance available. Alternatively, our team are waiting to help you on 0330 311 0854.